welcome back again to Winter League 2022 edition in Antalya in Callisto Hotel. And I have my valuable guests, Barry Simmons, coming from all the way from United Kingdom, and Nicolo Innocentin, a good mate of mine. They're both actually a long lifetime friends, and with one word they came to give their valuable opinion to all of you. Let me just say a few words about them. Barry's career includes all leadership, all in the Premier League, to New Zealand, to confederations, to mainly recruitment side of the things. I can tell the last post was Crystal Palace, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And but over 20 years of experience. And Nicolo Innocentin, Global Football Services, and he has been an agent for a very long time, but he has been a player himself from Germany to MLS.
Yeah.
But he brought a wealth of experience, especially Turkish audience would remember him bringing Roberto Mancini to Galatasaray. Now, our topic is again something different. We're going to talk about football for a change. And Barry, let's start from you, because two topics that I wanted to talk about today is the recruitment and scouting perspective via the eyes of sports directors, chief scouts, or even the presidential status. And then Nicola will tell us a little bit more about the topic of how agencies play in this role, and especially, again, the changing world of transfers and the recruitment process. So Barry, the ball is with you, and I really actually wonder, so what happens from the point of view of the player is being found, then transferred?
Okay.
Well, of course, you have hundreds of experience of the players that you try to transfer, players you transferred, and what happens?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tarkan, for inviting me to this wonderful facility in the Callisto Resort. Excuse me. And for allowing me to share my experiences.
Please.
The thing with international scouting, and if we take that to mean outside of England or outside of the UK, is we now have new regulations in the UK after leaving the European Union. And we have a GBE governing body endorsement from the Football Association. I won't go into detail because it's a 27-page document, but it has, in essence, 6 tiers for, really, I'm sorry. It has 6 tiers of the leagues from around the world that you can take players from, and in each tier there are afforded points for the club that they belong to, for the games that they've played, for the minutes that they've played. And alongside that, if they are an international player, they get either automatic work permit on application because their country is in the top 50 in FIFA rankings, or they've played enough minutes for their international team. So it's quite an involved process now to marry that with the actual work of international scouting. Over the last, and it's coincided, of course, with coronavirus and the effects of that on travel. Because in Europe, for example, the leagues have been shut down, opened up again, and they've been opened up with limited spectators, so that has restricted the live scouting programs at clubs. So the emergence of data and data providers and the emergence of video scouting over the last 18 to 24 months has absolutely skyrocketed within clubs. And clubs, instead of employing scouts to be out in the field and going to games, are employing video scouts or scouts to view players from video. So the process of working has altered. That doesn't mean field scouting and live scouting has gone. It doesn't mean that. But it means there's a much more emphasis on live scouting, data scouting, and video scouting. But nothing changes from the very start, which is what does the squad need and what does the coach want? And if you are in England, in the Premier League, we're allowed 25 players, a squad of 25. Although players under the age of 21 are not included in that 25. And 8 of the 25 must be homegrown. So they've got to have come either through your academy or an academy within England, which leaves 17 places for international players or players from internationally based. Pre-Brexit, that meant if you were a player from France or Germany or so on, you didn't need a work permit. Post-Brexit, you have to satisfy the requirements of a governing body endorsement certificate for your work application. In terms of the actual detail of what you look for or what you're looking for, I don't think that changes whether it's a player from Italy or Turkey or a player from England. You're looking for players who will enhance the squad, enhance the team, and enable the coach to win football matches. It's as straightforward, really, Tarkan, as that.
Well, I would actually like to hear some of your interesting experience, because one thing that I always wondered, right? The battle between who brought the player and the coach. Sometimes recruitment decides, right? Okay, this is the player that is suitable for this team. And the coach says, no, it's not my player. So, from your experience, when that happened, right, has any of the coaches that you work with backed up their argument saying why they don't want the player? Because in Turkey, for example, the report, let's say I'm the director of scouting or director of recruitment, I bring a player and the coach says, look, it's not my player. So that's the report we get. So from your experience in different coaches, if you could tell us a little bit about what is happening in that kind of situation. I'm sure you must have come across a lot.
It can happen. If it happens too regularly, it means you've got the wrong relationship with the scouting department and the coaching staff, because it shouldn't ever get to the point of you trying to sign a player and you've done all the work and the scouts have done all the work and the coach says, no, I don't want that player. It would be foolish of a scouting program and whoever runs it not to have introduced the idea of a particular player to the head coach and the coaching staff at quite an early stage. If you do it completely separately, then it allows the coach to block it and refuse it. So the successful scouting and then recruitment of a player involves the coach and the coaching staff at quite an early stage. In my own experience, if you have a new coach coming into a club and you're already established there, quite often, and you want to increase the squad or improve the squad, quite often a coach will refer to a player that either he has worked with before, or one of his coaches has worked with before, or one of his colleagues, his associates in coaching and management has worked with before. Or it might be a player that's played against him, and when they've played against him, they've done very well. So there hasn't been any real scouting of that player. It's just the coach having a feel for that player coming into his new squad. And there are many examples, I'm sure, around the world, not just in England, of coaches joining a club and the next transfer window, a player they've worked with before arrives at the club. In that case, I would always offer the coach an alternative and say, well, here's 3 players, if we say it's a right back, here's 3 players that we've scouted and we've done quite a lot of work on, and can we compare your player with these 3? And of course around that there's financial considerations and cultural considerations. Is this player already playing in the UK or is he playing in a league abroad? And then he would have to get, now post-Brexit, he would have to satisfy the governing body endorsement certification. So I think if you have confrontation with the coach at that stage, and the coach insists that he takes the player that he wants and not the player or a player from the scouting program, then you have to be very clear with him that that is his choice. And there's always a balance between bringing players in that the coach wants to work with. Of course, there's no point in bringing in a player that the coach doesn't want to work with. But the coach must be very clear, certainly with the president, for example, and the owner, that why he wants this player. And often it's something very simple. It's a comfort thing. He knows the player and he feels comfortable with the player. And the player that we are, or the scouting program is suggesting, may be a wonderful player and a wonderful person, but the coach doesn't know that. So he goes with what he feels comfortable with. And you have to accommodate that if you are running a big scouting program.
One last question. This is actually another personal wonder. Just the analysis of the UK, really. So Brexit happened, and the ruling's been changed. It's like coming back to olden days of the UK procurement process. How do you think it will affect the quality of the league, or will it affect the quality of the league?
No, I think the quality of the league will remain high. I don't think it can get any better, because we could get those players pre-Brexit or post-Brexit. We could get those players. In fact, in some respects, it's easier now to get players from certain areas. For example, Turkey, the Super League is in tier 2, so it's quite high. There's 6 tiers, so it's easier to get a player from Turkey than it was pre-Brexit. From Mexico, from Argentina, from Brazil, it's easier to get a player from there than it was before, than getting a work permit. So I think one door closes and another one opens. It's really about how clubs are run in terms of how they want the makeup of their squad to be, with those 17 places within the 25. And so I don't think the league will suffer at all, because it was always strong, or getting stronger. I think the way that players are recruited is changing, as I say, because of the emergence of data analysis and data providers. But of course, data is a language, and the best way of using a language is to learn it and to speak it. And because of that, we're still very new. And in England, we have 20 clubs in the Premier League. 5 of them do not have directors of football or sporting directors. This is off the top of my head, I'm just thinking now. So that leaves 15 that do. And I think 10 or 11 of the sporting directors of football in the Premier League are in their first job as directors of football. So the director of football role in England is really very, very new. Some clubs have introduced it for the first time. So the director of football role in relation to the head of recruitment role is something that is still in the process of growing. So data, the use of data and data provision from all different platforms has come at a really good time for, in my opinion, for English football. Because, but we do have to learn the language of data, and we do have to learn how to speak it and analyze it.
Well, thank you, Barry. Now, I'll bring the ball to Nicolo Innocentin, coming from all the way Italy and Cyprus, because you're a world person, Nico. I mean,
Kind of.
being a player in Germany, then elsewhere, then going to MLS, then coming back again, Italy, Cyprus, Russia. So probably there are no places that you have never been, right? Life of an agent. So, life of an agent and the relationship point of view, what's going on?
Well, as you said, Tarkan, and first of all, thanks again for having me here to the Calista Resort and all the organizer. I wanted again to say that it was an amazing experience, and I think it's really important nowadays to share experience among people working in the business, because especially in this time with the pandemic and so on, there are not many chances to share knowledge, you know, and that was a great chance to do it. So I'm looking forward also in the future to experience again this event. And back to your question, as you said, I was playing in different countries, and after I finished the professional playing career, I decided to continue to live abroad as a personal choice with my family. And I can say that I definitely now profiting of that choice that I made, because once you travel, you work, you live in another country, and you're humble enough to learn from them, you know, without pretending to show from which country you come from, you know, in this case I'm Italian, then you can definitely learn a lot from everyone. And then you can bring those information into your work, basically. And this is actually what I did and what I do on a daily basis, because when I approach to a different country, I need to understand how things works in that country, you know, which is the mentality. I saw, for example, in the past that the way, now talking strictly about clubs and agents, the way players are selected in UK are different than in Italy, than in Scotland, you know. So maybe the difference is not that high, but there is a difference. Sometimes the difference is just in the way you present or you approach them, but that difference can make a big difference in the decision phase for them. So again, as I was saying yesterday, people nowadays need to be more prepared than before, because there are tools out there that you can use, either as a club or as an agent, and those tools can let benefit both sides to lead to a good result. So from one side, today, for example, when I mention a player to someone, I do not pretend that they know player all over the world. It's impossible, you know, for everyone. But now there are tools that if someone wants to take a little time to go deeper, allow to get a clue, you know, about those players. thanks to the video analyst, thanks to the data. So there are really possibility to shortcut the timing of evaluation. But on the other hand, that does not allow agent and intermediaries, you know, to don't do their job. Because in my point of view, you cannot just shoot names and hope that the people working in the club has to make the research, evaluation on your behalf. You have to make really the job until a point that once you present a player in every country, because this is something that you can apply everywhere in the world, you already transfer enough information to them that they can clearly see if it's something that it's worth to explore further, you know? And I'm telling that because all the people, all the young guys that want to start the agent job or intermediary must to know that today, more than before, it's important to get prepared and present yourself very well, because there are lots of people who try to work in this business, and for that reason, the people in the club need to filter immediately, you know, those who can work professionally and those who unfortunately not. So they are forced to do that because they're receiving, Barry can confirm to you that once you are in a club, you might receive 100 names a day, isn't it? And so they have to create their own filter. Those filter can be just deal with people they trust, you know, or see immediately how somebody else that approached them for the first time present their own players. So again, it's not just where you have been, where you live, or where you work. It's to try to align in terms of communication with the people in the club, you know, and because once you try to raise this level of professionalism in presenting your ideas, then you can apply it everywhere. And in my experience, I never saw someone in any country telling me, that's not the way I want you know, you to present me player. Because once you send them data, once you send them highlights, you know, and analysis, and first of all, I really like what Bruno told the other day in his speech. He said, I like when somebody call me, and before to call me, study a little bit the club I'm working with. Because if he really did it, I don't even tell him what I actually need in the next transfer window. Because he should approximately already know if I need a striker or a right back.
Nico,
You know?
I know that, I mean, we spoke about this a lot. So, in usual way of letting, let's say, Barry to know that you have such a player, normal way currently, as you just send a link in a website where the details are.
Yes.
How about now, especially after the pandemics, how do you, how did you actually change your approach, and how do you prove a point that your player would succeed in a team?
Well, in this regard, I think that data are really helpful, because nobody would say that the live scouting, you know, perception is not important anymore. This is not important, it's crucial, you know. Nobody will sign a player, or it could happen very rarely for different meta, but nobody will sign a player without watch him live at least a few times, you know. So scouting, it's absolutely, let's say, scouting the player first live is mandatory, but the data are something that, at least from my side, helped me to highlight a profile to a sport director, for example, or head of recruitment, in a way that I can put a spot on this guy. Because, for example, again, the people in the club cannot know player all over the world. Of course, thanks to their scouting department, they can have, and normally they should have, a clue on the best player around the world. That's normal. And also thanks to company like yours, you know, Comparisonator, you receive a newsletter when monthly you can have a general overview of which are the most ranked player, you know. So getting all this data allow them to, again, shortcut the evaluation. But again, I have to be the one that I should even make it shorter by saying, look, for example, are you looking for a striker? I have in this moment the possibility to work on this player from Sweden, okay? But if I didn't check before that these players, among the others in his own league, is one of the best, honestly, you won't have many chance to succeed. So you should already give answer before to receiving the question from the sport director. Otherwise, he has to start to ask, does he have passport? If passport is an important factor to sign him, like in Italy, you know, limited number of foreigners. Is it right or left-footed? So you should give out as many information you can. And today, data allow you and support you in these regards. So I would say that doing this job today, it became a little bit easier, because before you had to convince about a player based on your perception mostly. And then if you were lucky, the scouts of the club were traveling and watched live the player. Otherwise,
now I'll surprise you. Going back a few years, right?
Yes.
Me and Nico Barry sat down and we are on Comparisnator, finding out whether Ribéry, Frank Ribéry, would work in Italy. Okay, if he works in Italy, which team would be the most suitable for Ribéry? Then I'll give the ball to Nico. How you convinced the Fiorentina people,
yeah,
through using the data and getting Ribéry to be employed by Fiorentina?
Well, this is a clear example of what I was telling you before.
And this is actually real communication,
yeah,
between you and the sports director, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is no secret, because everything is pretty clear, you know. Back in 2019, in July, we had this discussion after meeting us in Florence, and I just asked him before to work on him, if he could have been interested in that profile. And of course, you're talking about Frank Ribéry. He's a top-class player, you know, but he was already 36. Yes. So here comes the question mark. Would he keep performing if I bring him to Italian Serie A at 36, as he did in the last year in Bayern Munich? And here comes the data to support you. Because, okay, now you cannot read it clearly, but maybe here you can. I send out these reports where among all the players, in Italian I wrote here, this is the comparative ranking with all the other Bundesliga players, okay? So, the year before moving him to Italy, that season, he was the number 2 in offensive duel, for example, okay? Is the number 2 in offensive duel won. Now, it's a bit difficult to read, but I can. So, when it's blue and you see 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, among all the Bundesliga players, this is an impressive ranking, you know. Then I made the comparison between him and all the players in the Italian Serie A.
In the same position,
yes,
using Comparisnator,
yes,
virtual transfer, right?
Exactly. And if you see the yellow color there, okay, you can pretty fast realize where Frank was ranked compared, you know, with the Italian player. And the result was pretty impressive.
And one thing that I actually will get involved, see all these yellow ones, Barry?
Yes.
The yellow ones were the actual ranking if you transferred Ribéry to league in Italy.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was so amazing because I didn't even personally know that once you take Ribéry's stats to Italian Serie A, I personally didn't think that he would be in these rankings, but in the end, it worked, huh?
Absolutely, and of course, when you do in the Comparisnator, it's called virtual transfer, okay?
Yes.
So sometimes when you use it, some people in the club say, okay, but how can you compare, let's say, the Romanian championship with the Serie A? You know, it is not the same level. That's right. But when you talk about Bundesliga and Serie A, you know, the comparison might be pretty close. This is why I use it. And it works. Because
Well, the thing is, of course, in this kind of content, right, we, for example, as Comparisinator, specifically didn't put any league weights
yes,
and just left the decision makers' imaginations for the first moment.
Yeah.
Why? Because if you don't know the league difference between Romania and Serie A, well, I think you're in the wrong business.
yes,
However, as Barry said, because I've actually taken a note here, data is a language that everyone in the football industry needs to learn. Barry Simmons, okay?
yeah,
Well, that's actually what we are involved, what Nico is involved, also training the decision makers in data by using the Comparisinator tool.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was glad in the end, Ribery indeed achieved even better results than the virtual transfer, if you remember.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's doing now, but he's,
No, he's
how
not
old
in
is he now?
Fiorentina
38,
anymore.
39?
He's not in Fiorentina anymore, but he gave a big effort,
Yeah.
especially the first year.
It's a fantastic example. 10 years ago, I was at Fulham, and our
Karagounis.
and
Yes.
Martignol
What a
was,
story.
and it was the week after the European Championships, and it was our custom to have coffee and pastries in the morning before training. And in the conversation, Martignol said, you know, the type of player that we could really do with is that Karagounis, the Greek captain.
What a mighty captain, wasn't he? Tough.
But younger. He said, Karagounis is too old. Let's find a younger one, he said. So this is about 8:30 in the morning in London before training. And I said, yeah, Martin, leave that with me. Let me have a think on that. So then I went to my office and I spoke to, and of course the data that we have today is not from 10 years ago. And the thing that I was most interested in was using Karagounis as a benchmark. So I said to the guy, the analyst in my office, get me Karagounis' game figures up. So when I started looking at them, he was better than players 10 years younger. He was 36 around that time. So I rang an agent that I knew in Athens, and I said to him, do you have a number for Karagounis? And he said, no, but I know where he lives. I said, go to his house. And really?
What
He
a
said-
story. Eh?
And he
What a
said,
story.
okay.
It's a real life story.
Life story. So he goes to the house and knocks on the door or rings a bell. And so now in Greece it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, 11:30. By 9 o'clock that night, English time, Karagounis had his medical in London and signed for Fulham. And so we didn't need a younger Karagounis. We needed Karagounis. And he became a fantastic favourite with the fans, the supporters at Fulham. He had decided to retire. He wasn't going to play after the European Championships.
And you let him change
But
his mind.
we changed. I changed his mind, and thankfully for me, it was a success. But
It was
also,
fantastic,
but also
at that age.
the relationship with myself and the coach was good. To say, you know, that conversation we had this morning. If you look at his statistics, his game statistics, the
Yeah.
things that really matter, and especially in big games where he's played either for Greece or club level, Giorgio always performed well. He wasn't up and down. And that's where data can give you a good reference, a good guide. is not in the peaks and not the top and the bottom, but that middle ground, consistent performance. So fortunately, in this case, it worked, and he loved it. He loved his time with us, and we very much enjoyed having him with us.
And now, thank you, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, as a question that I need to ask to very international and very famous people, thanks to Nicola Innocentin to establish this special, very special video calls. And I'm just going to change the subject still with regard to selecting something. Selecting a first 11 is possibly the most difficult, even most controversial subject in all our lives. So I was a former player, so was you guys. And why I'm not in the 11? What's going on? But how difficult it is to select a player, first 11, because you know there's so many decisive factors, so many psychological factors to select that 11, tell the players and put them on the field and expect something in getting in return. So let's start our good friend Roberto Mancini, and if the Reggie can put the Roberto. Thanks to Nicola Innocentin making the interview. And here we are.
Good evening, everyone. And this is my answers at your question. I think that to decide for the first 11 is not easy, always. For a lot of situation that you have in the team. But usually it's normal that you have a team base. And after, I think that is very important, the weekly work. And after also the feeling that the manager have during the day, during the training. I think during the training, I think that this is very important, the feeling that you have about some players. But I think that when you decide is always difficult because you should leave out some important players, and this is not easy. But I think that is very important, the feeling and working during the week. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Roberto Mancini. Thank you, Nicola, for arranging it. Now let's talk to Roberto Donadoni.
Buongiorno a tutti, sono Roberto Donadoni e mi fa piacere di contribuire con un mio pensiero a questa Winter League Convention. Cercherò di spiegare quello che per me è importante nella scelta poi dell'11 che andrà in campo a disputare la gara.
Direi che il discorso parte un po' da più lontano, because already
per
at
me
the
è
beginning of the
fondamentale
season I
riuscire
tried to
ad avere
bring
un
into the
gruppo
team players
di
with
ragazzi,
high level of
di
professionalism.
giocatori che abbiano
I consider
un
important
alto grado
those
di
aspects
professionalità
equally
e
or even
soprattutto
more
che abbiano quelle
importantly.
qualità
Another important
caratteriali
factor that I tried to
che
build in the team
secondo me
sense of
fanno la
fair
differenza,
competition.
al di là dell'aspetto tecnico che
It's
chiaramente
going
è
too fast, I'll
importante,
create.
ma che
In order to achieve this balance, it's important aligning all the parties involved in the daily routine, such as the management, the technical staff, the medical staff, of course, the main actors who are the players. Nowadays, letting players running isn't that hard while building the right mindset. By creating the right setup, I can fully concentrate on how to build the identity of my team instead of trying to react to the opponent as I would automatically lower the value of the whole team. And I'm wishing the good luck to you all. Now we bring Domenico Tedesco. Thank you to Nicola Innocentin. Here we are, Domenico.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I try to answer the question about the starting 11. these are the aspects that I try to explain. First of all, the physical condition. So how is the team? You know, the single player, he's fit, he's coming from an injury or not. You know, this is the first aspect to check. Then of course the tactics, which formation, which kind of player we need in the last third, which kind of central defender we need to defend, for example, long balls. Then social aspects. What I want to say with this is, you know, sometimes, for example, a coach, is noticing that a player is not training with 100%. So you want to send a message. So I think that the last two aspects belongs together. You know, also who is deserving it. You know, sometimes a young player is training really well, and you want to put it inside the starting 11 just to send also a sign. So these are some aspects that I check before searching the starting 11. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for Domenico Tedesco. Well, guys, I think we came to the end of this session, but it was absolutely fantastic to see you guys coming all the way from UK, coming all the way from Italy, even during the pandemic. Well, I'd like to thank you both.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
thank you very much. And we'll leave the winter, Antalya Winter League 22 edition, ending the session. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.